Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today to talk about Rise of Iron's brand spanking new patrol zone, the Plaguelands. Now, the Plaguelands are essentially an expansion of the Cosmodrome. It's more old Russia, so you're going to see a lot of the same design aesthetics inside of the Plaguelands that you saw inside of the Cosmodrome, but everything has kind of been taken up to 11. There's a lot more diversity, there's a lot more variety here, there's a lot more detail, and of course you're also dealing with an area that is being ravaged by the Fallen Splicers, the Fallen, as well as Siva itself. So it's a pretty fantastic zone from a visual presentation, unless of course you didn't like the Cosmodrome, and unless of course you don't like dark, dreary, truly miserable places, because that's really what the Plaguelands is. Now, from a video game perspective, that's badass to me. I really like the Plaguelands. It's a really cool place to be, and there's a lot of awesome pieces of design. But it's the kind of zone, if I had to visit in real life, I'd probably get really sick to my stomach and want to cry, because in real life I'm not a badass guardian that's been touched with magical light powers from an alien globe floating over our planet. Nonetheless, let's talk a little bit more about the Plaguelands. This is essentially going to be my review of the Plaguelands. We're going to talk about it from an environmental design perspective, and we'll also talk a little bit about just what you can expect to do in terms of activities in Rise of Iron's new patrol zone. So I'm actually going to put a map up on the corner of the screen here for you guys, and we're going to take a journey through the Plaguelands to really emphasize some of my points here. Now, this map was actually created and posted by Reddit user Azrael. I found this map last night. It's the very first map of the Plaguelands that we received, and I want to give a big shout out to Azrael and ask you guys, if you are a Reddit user, to click the link down in the description below to Azrael's post, he or she's post, and please give it a big, fat, juicy upvote, and then of course feel free to use this map to make your journeys in the Plaguelands that much more easier. So we're going to start off down at a place called Lord's Watch. This is where you actually spawn inside of the Plaguelands. Nothing too special here. It's pretty much a branching off point between Bunker Triglav, Foundry 113, and Giant's Husk. We're going to push our way towards Bunker Triglav, and we're going to get our first taste of the really remnants of the industrial area of old Russia. I guess you could say remnants of the Golden Age, in which they were manufacturing and producing a lot of products. It's really cool. I love seeing the old Russia, manufacturing in industrial areas. And you see more of that in Foundry 113, and bits and pieces of that scattered throughout areas of the Plagueland. Now, as we push out of Bunker Triglav, we're going to make our way into the Forgotten Pass. This is probably one of the quietest, if not the quietest and calmest area of the Plaguelands. This road winding alongside of the ocean inside of old Russia, completely covered in snow. There isn't really a lot of threats going on here, but you will notice that Siva has managed to infect much of this territory as well. After we leave the Forgotten Pass, we'll make our way to Archon's Keep. Now, this is where we really get to see one of these zones that highlights the diversity of the Plaguelands. This is the big thing about the Plaguelands, is while it is a zone that is very much in old Russia, there's a ton of diversity in each and every single one of its sectors. Bungie has hit it out of the park with this one. Archon's Keep is this, it's kind of this mining area, this sort of foundry zone, where the Fallen Splicers are sucking resources and scrap out of the environment and churning it into molten hot lava. So you're going to see molten hot lava pits. There are machines pouring it out. There's even like a larger manufacturing area built into a wall that is just pouring it out like a waterfall. It can and will kill you, so be very careful. But the good news is, especially if you're someone who has a knockback ability, perhaps a warlock, you could push Fallen into the molten hot lava. Yeah, I mean, come on. Who doesn't want to do that? Watch them burn. It's really quite cool. Now, we're going to skip Archon's Forge, which of course is the new public event zone, and the areas connecting to it, and make our way over to the Doom Sea. This is one of the smaller, less complex areas of the Plaguelands, but what it highlights is the incredible skybox and sort of distant landscapes that we cannot visit that exist outside of the Plaguelands. So you look out essentially over the Doom Sea. That is the point of this zone. You're going to see massive cargo ships and broken down shipwrecks in the distance. The water is just black and covered with this dense fog, and as you look to the sky, it's nothing but darkness and miserableness. You can really get a good sense for the impact that Siva and the Splicers are having on this area of old Russia. They're just sucking its resources, completely savaging the land, and Bungie portrays that in the skybox. And I love looking out over the Doom Sea, because you can just imagine these wonderful, insanely twisted Destiny creatures swimming through that black water and ocean, making their way, perhaps making homes inside of those old shipwrecks. Might be looking into that a little bit too much, but hey, I never said I didn't have an imagination. Let's push out of the Doom Sea and head our way over to the Giant's Husk. Now this is one of the most complex and layered areas of the Plaguelands. Let's talk about the scale of the Plaguelands briefly. It's obvious that the overall size of this zone seems to be smaller than anything we've seen in the Cosmodrome or maybe even in the Dreadnought. But where it lacks its overall scale and sort of width across an area, it makes up for it with its depth and complexity. This is a very dense patrol zone. You'll notice that if you really spend time in Bunker Triglav, you know, inside of the Siva battery, which connects to it. Even, you know, when you make your way into the Warrens in Site 6, you'll see just how deep it is. But Giant's Husk is a prime example of the layers that Bungie has started to implement into their patrol zones. Honestly, the Plaguelands to me feels much more alive and much more real than any of the previous patrol zones. You know, you look at the Cosmodrome, you look at Venus, you look at those areas, and they just kind of feel like maps designed for the sake of gameplay. The Dreadnought, on the other hand, does really feel like a genuine place, and the Plaguelands seems to continue that trend. Now, Giant's Husk is just that. It's this massive old cargo ship that's been split in half, and you can actually go inside half of it. In fact, it even has a locked-off room, which you'll see on the minimap indicated by the red box that says locked. You'll need a splicer key, but you can make your way inside. There's some bad dudes to kill, and this is also a great place to find one of those crazy Iron Lord giant two-handed axes. There's also a couple chests in there, as will be with most of the locked off areas inside of the Plaguelands. Now, apart from being able to go inside of half of the Giant's Husk, you also have everything going on down on the ground. You know, everything under the overpass. There's lots of combat going on down there, different little caves to explore, and then there's the overpass itself, which you can make your way up onto, which has a whole other area to explore. They've added a lot of complexity in these zones. There's a lot of layers, there's a lot of verticality, and I really appreciate that. It's not like there's something to do in each and every single area. I'm not saying that, you know, the overpass is filled with just as much good stuff as the underpass and as the Husk itself, but the fact that it exists shows that they're really expanding their thought process on how they design these sectors within these patrol zones, and I really quite dig that. All in all, the Giant's Husk is probably one of my favorite areas inside of the Plaguelands. Again, diversity being a big part of this. You're seeing, you know, the diversity, the different zones, the way that they seem to be affected by Siva, affected by the Fallen, or possibly not affected by Siva or the Fallen. There are even some areas in which you're going to run into the Hive, and I'm going to leave that at that. Now let's push our way back down to Foundry 113. This is a small sort of corridor area that you're going to pass through. It's been savaged and absolutely wrecked by Siva. It will, however, connect you to the rocket yard. The very same rocket yard. Wow, I can't say rocket yard. The very same rocket yard that exists inside of the old Cosmodrome. This is the post-Siva version of it. So you get to see it covered in about 3 feet of snow. You're going to deal with fallen splicers, and you can even go back to where Vanilla Destiny started. I'm really happy that Bungie decided to let us revisit this. You know, you're going to pretty much jump into it at the start of Rise of Iron. You can go back to it. There's this incredible giant fallen catch there. It's just cool that they let us go back to this area. You can't explore all of the Cosmodrome, but again, the important parts like the hangar where you first found your ship, the rocket yard, they remain intact. That's pretty freaking wicked cool. Let's briefly talk a little bit about the area around Archon's Forge. Archon's Forge, as I said, is the public event. It's very Fallen, you know, it's a Fallen created area, or at least the Fallen seem to have consumed an area and turned it into their own little battleground. As you push past that, you'll make it into the Warrens in Site 6, which I don't really want to show or talk about because it is connected to the game story, but this is a more Warmind area. You're going to see a lot of Warmind, sort of Rasputin type technology. All in all, guys, I think they killed it with the Plaguelands. You know, when we talk about actual content and gameplay, it's a lot of the same. You know, you're going to see a lot of the same patrols that you've done in the past. They have added a little bit of variety, and of course, you are dealing with Siva engineered enemies. So when you get something like a Warsat or a spider tank, for example, that's going to have Siva technology in it. And I do strongly believe that the diversity, the complexity, the level of detail that they put in to the Plaguelands means that combat is a little bit more interesting. And of course, dealing with the splicers also makes it a little bit more interesting. But at the end of the day, expect to do a lot of the same stuff you did on the Dreadnought, just pretty much over again. hopefully that kind of helps refine and break down the Rise of Iron expansion a little bit more for people who are still on the fence about buying it. I'm having a ridiculously good time with the Plaguelands. The only thing that I want to see happen is I want to see the community uncover some mysteries. The Dreadnought had some fantastic mysteries. There was lots of puzzle pieces for us to put together. We could feel like detectives and actually discover things, from disappearing platforms to chests that needed to be opened in certain ways. That kind of stuff doesn't seem to exist in the Plaguelands, at least not anything that I've seen in the like 6.5 hours that I've spent there so far. So maybe that will change. You know, I think Bungie likes to hide stuff from the community, and the community really likes to go ahead and find that stuff. So who knows? In the coming days and weeks and months, we just might uncover something yet. Now, if you'd like to share any of your thoughts, your experience with the Plaguelands, I'd love to hear it down in the comments section below. If you have any other questions or concerns for me, throw it down there as well. Once again, please go ahead and hit the description, the link down in the description. Head on over to Azrael's post and give it a nice, big, juicy upvote. That map is already saving a lot of us time, and I imagine that's going to continue to save even more people a bunch of time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.